From over 150 recovery interviews on the channel to this day, we've learned that many people tie the start of ME/CFS to some sort of viral infection, and often heavy stress is the final straw. That's what happened to today's guest, Jack Bearfox. If you're new around here, I'm Raelan. On this channel, I share real stories of people recovering from ME/CFS and long COVID. It's a space where we can learn from each other's experiences and offer support along the way. Today's story is a bit different. Jack from High Wycombe, UK, is still working his way through his recovery, just coming out of a major setback, as it unfortunately happens with ME/CFS recovery. We're going to dive into the ups and downs of his journey, talking about everything from trying out different diets and cleanses to his experience with antidepressants and exploring alternative therapies like ayahuasca. He has a ton of insight into the recovery process and feels he is on the right path now. He is humble, he's honest, and plus is just an overall amazing person who I know you will love, appreciate, and learn from. Jack, so grateful you're taking the time and the energy to do this today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
So you have had quite the journey with this. I don't even know where to start. I'll let you take us to where you'd like to start.
It's hard to know where to start sometimes. I suppose the thing with chronic fatigue syndrome is it's sort of on a spectrum of, how severe it can be. And I think I've gone through that spectrum in the last 5 years. So yeah, it did start around 5.5 years ago in the summer. And I was doing open water swimming at the time. So I've always been someone who's athletic, gone to the gym my whole life. And I just finished an open water swim. And later that night, I just felt a bit ill. Yeah, I had a bit of an illness. And then the next day I felt a bit tired, stayed in bed, went back to work the day after that. And was just sort of dragging myself through it, this fatigue. And I was just like, well, it'll pass at some point. I had a couple months before just had a really severe breakup with someone I really loved, and it was really damaging. The whole thing was really damaging, but I didn't really quite know how damaging. You just sort of get on with these things, don't you? And a lot of the time, I just kept it all to myself. But yeah, this fatigue had started, and weeks passed before I was just a complete zombie. And trying to just continue to go on, getting up for work really early in the morning and just sitting on the side of my bed, just in complete fog, and just wondering how the hell I'm going to get through the next 10 hours or so, And this went on for, I'd say, around 8 months before. Well, I went down the doctor's route, did all the blood tests, multiple blood tests. The only thing I was told was to take antidepressants, which I refused. I was adamant that I was down because of what was going on, but I wasn't depressed, But you start to question yourself, don't you? Like, am I depressed? Is this depression? So yeah, I ended up going to see a naturopath around a year later. We did some work together. I saw multiple naturopaths, so I've done a lot of work with functional doctors. And we worked through stuff. We changed diets. We implemented supplements, different routines, things that picked me up, but never was able to get over the hurdles. There was always, I would describe my fatigue as there's like a weight at the back of my knees that pulls me down. So it instantly feels like I need to sit down. It's a real crazy feeling, and when you wake up and it's there, it's a hard day sort of thing. So I was able to make some relatively good improvements. In fact, the lockdown came, and then I was able to not work. And although I had to continue working before, I struggled through it, and somehow was just getting through the days. I think I was down to 4 days a week, but I was able to do them. They were just tough. I ended up working with another naturopath through the lockdown, and we did some things like parasite cleanses, loads of other stuff that I'm not even too familiar with, but I was just going along with, and I had some really good results. I started to supplement with testosterone, and I felt like I was, for the first time I was gaining some strength back, and I was working out again. The feeling of the fatigue was still there, and I had to be very mindful of what I did. If I did a workout, I would have to be very cautious the next day and stuff like this. I was only able to work up to 3 to 4 days a week and so on. But it was a pretty good life, And that continued on. I mean, that sort of handicap. And, you know, whenever I got an illness like a cold or a virus, like I would plummet and I would struggle for a whole full month, and then usually get, you know, pick back up, and then in no time I'd be better than before. And this was just sort of the way I'd lived for, I'd say, 4 years, up until last May. And I'd been, so I'll actually go back to the start of last year. I just started a new job in London, and I started working full time for the first time in that time period that I'd been ill. And I was working with another naturopath, and I'd made some real good progress, and I was feeling like I'm right around the corner from getting over this. Like, I remember coming home from work one day, and I live in a caravan, and I was standing in the field in the caravan, and my legs felt good, and I'd done a full day's work, and I was like, I'm going to be over with this soon, you know? And then I would say from that realization, like it was like a week later. Well, I actually ended up back in the same relationship with the person that I had split up with before, 4 years ago. I hope this is making sense still. We ended up getting back together. We had another bad breakup, and 2 weeks after that, I got some sort of illness, and I was sick. I had about a week off work, went straight back to work, still struggling, but carried on. And then, and it was just really tough, you know, it was just like one of those periods where you're just really struggling with it. I finished work in May, and I was going to go traveling. This is why I live in a caravan, so I can travel around in the summer and do work and stuff like that. So the first day of my travels, I woke up and I was sick again, had this cold, this sore throat. I was obviously, it's the first day at someone's house working for them, so I continued to work. And the illness didn't go away, and it was 3 weeks in, and I had to leave and head home to rest. And since then, every time I would rest, I would come back, and the illness would come back. And then every time I'd rest, it would go away, and then it would come back. And it was just like not like before, you know. It had sort of taken on like some new legs, you know. So yeah, this continued, and I just carried on trying to get back on my feet, get back on my feet, but I would crash, and I would spend a week in bed. I was only able to work like 1 day a week, and this went on for months. I lost my whole summer, really. I basically spent it inside a caravan in bed. And that was when someone sent me the work of Dr. Sarah Myhill. So I found her book. I watched all her videos, and I was just like, right. I mean, anybody with chronic fatigue knows that you need a plan. You need a plan, and you need to have faith in that plan to move forward. And I had it. This was it. I was like, okay, I'm liking what this woman says. I felt like I'd learned more from her than I had from any naturopath that I'd paid for over the years, just from watching one of her YouTube videos. And so I started to follow the ketogenic diet. I was taking, you know, just following the book, but the steps that she had laid out to get better. And it sort of set me back a bit at first. I think it was quite a stressful diet to put myself under. But once I started to fall into ketosis, I started to pick up, and I was noticing some improvements, but my body was still very sensitive. At this point, I'd stopped working at all, so I was just focused on recovery. I was signed off of work, and you know, again, I'd been back for more blood tests, all this stuff. Signed off of work and just fully focused on recovery. And this took me up to around Christmas time last year, December. And I was getting a little bit impatient with things, and I tried to implement a candida cleanse on top of what I was doing. And yeah, it just, I mean, I didn't know this, but my body wasn't strong enough to deal with that. And it just took me down, like brutally. I was stuck in bed for, I'd say, 20 hours a day. Just, I'd wake up an hour in my bed, and then, you know, awake, like, trying to gather some energy, and then before I know it, I'd have to go back to bed. And that went on till like the middle of February, sort of, you know. Yeah, just stuck in this caravan, which seemed like such a bad choice once I got really sick. But it was, it was a bit of a dream to be living in a caravan and traveling around. But once I was bedbound, it was a bit of a nightmare. Stuck in there through the winter. It was really tough. So yeah, I mean that's sort of my story and of where I'm at. And since then I've just been very slowly coming out of that really severe crash, just trying to make sense of everything and relearn life, because everything I have to do now, I really have to check in with myself and make sure that I'm in the right place before I go and put myself to do something. I've seen how bad this can get, and I don't want to go back there.
I'm really sorry you've had to go through all this. Oh my goodness, listening to your journey, if someone had told you when you first got this that you would go through all of this, like, would you even have thought that, like, I feel like most of us would be like, no, I don't think I could even keep going. Like, that's just too much suffering, too much struggle, too much setback. So how do you think, or what helps you in those setbacks and when you think you're making progress and then all of a sudden you feel worse? Like, how do you keep picking yourself back up and going?
Do you know what? I mean, I really find having faith in a plan is the way to keep myself moving. I mean, yeah, I've been through some incredibly dark times with this. I mean, I was very positive before that crash, and there was no way I could find any positivity in myself when I was spending that long in bed. It was so dark and it was so hard. And no matter how bad it got, really, I mean, there's so many times where I'm just like, I'm done with trying. I'm just done. But within a day or two, I'm rethinking a plan, and because I can't let it go, because at the end of the day, right now, there's no quitting, because this is all I have. This is the life I live. I mean, my whole life now revolves around getting better. There's nothing else for me, I mean, whether it means that I need to work towards the best living, the best way I can live in this life, or making a full recovery. But yeah, I mean, I can't really give it up because it is just so consuming. I mean, if I ever have a conversation with somebody on the phone, I cannot help but bring it up, like what I'm going through, because it is 24/7. It's really hard to, understand what's actually going on in real life.
And what was it like for you? Because I feel like you downplayed or didn't fully share the extent of your athleticism when this hit you, because you were doing triathlons, and I believe you said you're doing 6-mile swims, which I think is about 10 kilometers. You were really like in peak performance, and then to have to go through this, like, what was that like?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough every single day. It's such a funny one, because I've sat here with myself, and I feel like my body feels frustrated because it knows how much it is used to doing, how much it's used to pushing. Like, even when I had chronic fatigue for those 4 years, I was still exercising, I was still able to do hard exercise, like harder than most people. And to go, I mean, now there's there's zero. And it hurts my soul, to be honest. I feel it in my soul. Like there's something in there that just knows that, we're not fulfilling something. I'm not able to express myself through my body, which I've always done. It is really hard. It is a really hard pill to swallow. Every day I will go through this, and the way to cope is to really to not think about it, because there's every day I'm sat here and I know I'm doing so little, and I just worry about the impact that's having on my body, and because stagnation is terrible for the body, and I have no choice of that. But I'm really just trying to not focus on it as much as I can. If I have the thought, I try and just take myself away from it, because those sort of thoughts will just get me trying to rush and trying to move forward quickly, when I just know that that's not really possible anymore,
It's really incredible that you're talking about all of this now. I really appreciate your honesty with all of it. I know it's not an easy thing to talk publicly about personal things and your hardest struggles, but I know so many people around the world, when they're in this, myself included, you can feel so alone in it. And it can feel like no one else really gets it and you're going through something completely unique. And not that it fixes it, but I think it's really powerful to hear, like, okay, I'm not alone. This is just welcome to the club, this shitty club, but like we're all going through it, and this is how it goes. And it's not just me that's struggling, and having those moments when I don't know if I can keep going. It's part of the journey.
Yeah, it's really difficult. I mean, I did reach out on a lot of the groups on Facebook. Some I found helpful, some I found a little bit too negative at times. But yeah, I mean, just some of them are just set up for moaning, aren't they? At the end of the day, and it's such a hard one, because with the being positive through this, I mean, I can't lie. Like, this is really shitty, and like, if someone wants to ask me how things are going, like, I want to tell them, like, things aren't going well, but I mean, you kind of got to fake it in a way, and I try in that, and I'm trying to just be like, today I'm actually better than I was yesterday, and I'm a mile better than I was back at Christmas time, and focus on those little things. And it is really hard. It is very hard to remain positive when you're going through something like this. And I'm not a master at it. There's tons of times where I have to just, sulk, because it is frustrating, and the world is going on around us, and there's nothing you can do about it at the end of the day, apart from try your best to get as fit as you can, Yeah,
and when we originally scheduled this interview, it was meant to be more of a recovery interview, because you were doing quite well, and then you had that setback. And we talked about, people really appreciate, if you still are physically, mentally up for it, come on, because it's really helpful for people to hear from people who are still going through their journey. And also, like we talked about, we learn so much, even if you're not fully there yet. You become a bit of an expert on these things, and you have a lot of insights. So I think people would love to hear, first, what things have you tried that have not been helpful for you? And then after that, what are the things that have been inching you forward? Mm-hmm. So first, what are some of the things out there that just didn't really get you anywhere?
I mean, I tried a lot of diets. I would say I only really found one that was actually beneficial. I'm not sure any of them are really going to solve the puzzle.
Sorry to interrupt. Which diet was beneficial for you?
So the ketogenic diet I found was beneficial for me. I did a bit of a low glycemic diet before, which I found sort of helpful, but for the work I had to put in for that, it wasn't that good. I've probably tried every supplement you under the sun. I'm not sure one supplement has ever helped me. I've probably spent upwards of thousands of pounds on them by now. I mean, I'll still try. If you tell me there's a supplement that might help me, I'd give it a go. But yeah. I've come to the thought that I'm not sure I'm going to get it's a nutrient problem or, so much a diet problem. I think these things will help with symptoms. But yeah, it's difficult because I've done, I've lived the most healthy. I've been the most healthiest man technically on earth with this, but still had no results. And I suppose right now I've been sort of looking at a lot of things revolving around trauma. I read a book called I think it's called The Body Keeps a Score. So I've been looking at I'm not sure we can talk about this on here, but I've been doing things like ayahuasca ceremonies and stuff like that to try and get to the bottom of something that may be holding me back, because that's sort of where I feel I'm at with this now.
For people who might not be aware, can you explain what ayahuasca ceremony is?
Yes. So ayahuasca is plant medicine. I think it comes from Peru. It's been used for thousands of years by tribes as a medicine to help heal people, is my understanding of it. Give you some good revelations on your life and stuff like that. Yeah, and I've had a little bit of success, or definitely had a bit of a pickup with and I've only done one, but I'm looking to do some more. But it's very scary stuff, It's very brave work, and it's not for everybody. It's not something I actually want to do, but to be honest, I feel like I'm sort of forced down that road right now, because I feel like I've stretched every other avenue. I spoke about a bit of a traumatic breakup that I had, which seemed to be at the start of both of these episodes of my chronic fatigue. But I also went through a few traumatic experiences as a kid. And I feel like this could be a big part of the puzzle.
So your plan moving forward from here for recovery, what does that look like?
My plan is really, I'm resting a lot. I make sure I'm always able to have a 20 or 30 minute yoga nidra, maybe 2 to 3 times throughout the day. At the minute, it's only been about twice a day I need those. But it's just constantly checking in with myself. And, I wake up, I hydrate myself, I go on a walk, I come back. Before I have any sort of tea, coffee, whatever like that, I will assess if I need to lay down a yoga nidra. I mean, those sort of things have been very, very good for me, and it's almost it's a surrender. For the first time in the 5.5 years, I am surrendering to this, and I won't be I have to plan everything so I can have a 20-minute lay down somewhere, and that seems to just be keeping me going, I suppose. On top of that, I am still following the ketogenic diet. I mean, I find that to help some of my symptoms. Again, I don't think that's going to heal me, but it keeps me disciplined, and it keeps me on a path, which I quite like. I'm doing lots of meditations, and I plan to dive deeper into plant medicine, I suppose, and try and take this time to really get to know myself.
Well, for what it's worth, from all the people I've talked to who have made a lot of progress with their recovery, and when they finally turn things around, they're saying kind of all the stuff you're saying now. So if that says anything, it sounds like you are on a really good path.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah. So you've been going at this for quite a few years now. What do you think are some of the hindrances, or what's been some of the things holding you back?
Yeah, I'd say a lack of patience. There's when you are trying a lot of the time to find out things on your own, there is a lot of trial and error involved, and there isn't a blueprint. What works for you isn't going to work for me. Yeah, there is so much you're going to have to go through to work out what necessarily works for you. And I think in terms of a hindrance, I would say just almost a lack of awareness for myself, and a connection within my body, I suppose. And I feel like that's a big part of this. Maybe a big part of the lesson is to reconnect with the body and just listen and know, like, okay, this isn't working right now and things need to change, because I do believe, and I know Sarah Myhill says this, that we are our best doctors. We are, we're the most qualified to heal ourselves. And it comes with a lot of body knowledge. So yeah, I would say my biggest hindrance is just being a lack of patience and just a disconnect from my body and sort of searching for in others, really, to try and give you the answers when I really don't think they have it. I really don't think that. I know there's a lot of people out there who think they can help you and stuff, and I'm sure some of them can, but I really think a lot of this is down to us to sort out.
Yeah, if there's a script for people who are firmly on the path to recovery, I swear you're reading from it. So I'm very excited for you, because it really seems like you're in a really great place, and it's just like everyone else I talk to who just sort of really starts making some really great progress. So I'm feeling really good about this for you. Is there anything that if you could go back, is there anything that you would have done differently with your recovery? Yeah,
100%. I mean, the Candida cleanse that Christmas, that's a really costly mistake, and I suppose just the problem with every time we have a setback with this, we always have to go for a different level of acceptance again, which is, always a drawn out process. Every time you have a setback, there's new tolerances, and I really think, before I would have been fine with that Candida cleanse, but because this was completely different beast, I mean, it just destroyed whatever I had left. And I really regret that. And I didn't need to do it either. It was, again, down to a lack of patience and a rushing to get better. There's you're never going to rush through this. It's a long journey, unfortunately.
Yeah, cleansing was a massive thing when I got sick, and I did all of the cleanses, and I was convinced that this is going to be part of my recovery. And I think maybe even in my book, I might have included some of that. And I do think cleanses have a lot of power, and I do them to this day. But I no longer believe that it, probably in the vast majority of cases, they have anything to do with ME/CFS recovery. And like you said, when you're already in a not a good place, that is a lot. I mean, because they can be quite intense. So it's interesting how our understanding of that is changing. And I think it's an important thing to talk about because, 15 years ago, it was really pushed down our throats that, our bodies were just toxic sludge things full of all these problematic things. And we just had to do all these really crazy cleanses and then we'd be fine.
I actually think, I actually don't think my body is actually that unhealthy, to be honest. There's obviously something going wrong, but I don't think it's down to toxins or, bad food and stuff like that. Not with the work I've done and everything. That's definitely what I fought for a long time.
Yeah. I think most of it, which makes sense. We're physical symptoms. We think there's something in there we have to fix. So hearing you say that, I'm curious, what do you think your illness is actually down to? What is causing it?
I suppose we all have inklings, don't we? And I think they sort of change throughout our journey. There was a long time that before I was vegan for a long time, and I tried to put it down to that, but I've come to the realization that it wasn't that, I suppose. And I may have touched on this earlier, but I do think it is down to past stresses and traumas. And I think I spent a lot of my years in living in fight or flight. I spent a lot of my childhood maybe living in a bit of fight or flight, a lot of anxiety. And I think that relationship that I had was just a very similar sort of experience to maybe what I was going through when I was growing up. And I think the body had taken so much and it's not been cared for enough. And in the end, it's just sort of had a pushback. I also, I suppose in the year leading up to my first ever crash, I was doing things like boxing, very high adrenaline. I was also sabotaging fox hunts because I was a vegan, so I was stopping people fox hunting, which was another high adrenaline activity I was doing on my Saturdays. So my body was probably just worn out, And like I said, I got better in those 5 years, and then that last year when I was almost making recovery, I started to get high stressed at job. I went back into a stressful relationship, and then bang, the body's like, we're not doing it anymore, mate. You need to learn your lessons. That's my theory. I'm not 100% sure either way, but it's sort of what I've come to my understanding of it now.
Most people find that these journeys change them a lot. I call it like growth boot camp. I'm curious, has this changed who you are now versus who you were before this all started? And what has it taught you, about yourself as you've gone through this?
Yeah, I think it would be silly to say it hasn't changed me. This year has been extremely tough, and so much time on my own. Yeah, obviously I've had to completely slow down, and I was always been a fast-paced person. And I'm not saying that I'm over that, because if I get the chance, I'll be doing it again. But there is that is what is having to change in order for this to get fixed. That slowing down and just sort of becoming present and being with what you're doing, rather than, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, I've got to do this. And that's a lot of work. There's a lot of work there to be done. I think it's shown me just how hard I've been on myself throughout my life, and I don't think that's going to be helpful going forward if I'm going to recover. Having to go a bit more easier on myself now, and I'd say that's a good positive to out of this.
I like how you pointed out that you'll probably go back to some of those things, because I know I naively thought, once I'm better, I will have learned all my lessons and I will be this perfectly balanced person who never does any of those things again. And it's not that. I know.
No.
I really did believe it, though. After 10 years, I'm like, there's no way I'm so stupid that I would go back to doing some of the things I was doing before. But it's not that simple. It's pretty ingrained habits. So and but holding on to that piece of not being hard on yourself. So I'm still trying. It's still a journey. But those messages to yourself, because when I hear that self-talk, beating myself up, I'm like, no, we're not doing that anymore. We've done that for years. It's never helped. So let's just be more curious about this. Like, why did I do this thing? Or why did I not do this thing? And that self-compassion piece for everyone I talk to is so important.
Yeah. And that self-talk, I mean, because it comes into, it will get you when you're sort of like, oh, I've still got to do this today, and I'm worried about if I'm going to crash. And you can almost like, start to bring a crash on. Oh, I'm going to crash, and it is important to just go, I'm okay right now. I can rest. We can get through this, and not let that, because we're hardwired. It's obviously our experiences that are generating this talk. So, yeah, it's very important just to sort of check in with yourself. Like, I'm okay right now. If I need to rest, I can get that in. Yeah, so it's a complicated world.
It is. And we're never going to be perfect. So we're still occasionally going to make the wrong choice, make bad choices.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes you can get stuck in this feeling of like, oh, I need to punish myself. Like, I made mistakes. I need to sit here and feel ashamed or beat myself up. And for me, it's always catching myself in those moments. I'm like, zero help. That doesn't help anything. So let's just put that away. Be kind to myself and just kind of think about how I can, in the future, maybe there be a way for me to make better choices. Anyways, Jack, this has been absolutely incredible. Listening to your story resonates so much for me. I have no doubt it resonates for so many people watching. It's so powerful and important and valuable to get this stuff out there. So just really from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for taking the time and the energy to do this today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's I've really enjoyed this. Actually, it's been really nice for me.
Oh, I'm so glad. And everyone in the comments, let's leave Jack some very nice messages, encouraging, supporting him on his journey past this. And of course, any questions that you have or comments, thoughts about things that we've talked about. But yeah, also for people watching, I know it's a lot to take in. So if you haven't already signed up for my newsletter, there's a link in the video description. And every week I just summarize in bullet points the recovery stories, what worked, what didn't, key resources that got them there. Because I know it's a lot of information overload out there. And quite often that's what keeps people stuck, is you just get overwhelmed and you're like, I don't even know where to start. So thank you again, Jack. Thank you to all of you watching. Big hugs to you. Whatever you're going through, please keep at it, keep going. I believe your answers are out there. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got a ton out of it. And I hope to see you in this next one.